Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I did have a few exciting things I just heard about for the wrestling fans. This will mostly be a wrestling discussion. Apparently, our buddy there, Cesaro, um, of the WWE since 2011, has opted not to resign with the company. Um, Many people are reporting already that Cesaro had a 1 week extension going. Apparently, Cesaro was supposed to be in the Nakamura spot of this gauntlet match a while back. That basically because he had not re-signed his contract, Cesaro, that is, he was taken out of that spot. He hasn't won a match on WWE programming apparently since last November of 2021, and now he's gone. So this is one of these wrestlers that WWE seems to have on their roster for quite some time. They're not quite sure what to do with the person, and they just kind of flounder. I think Cesaro might have been. What did he win the U.S. title or the Intercontinental title? I'm thinking he probably did at 1 point or 2 points. He definitely won the tag team title several times with Sheamus and others. He was part of a lot of contingents and a lot of heel factions, and I think was he in the League of Nations? 5 or 6 years ago, I think he was. But basically, a guy that the fans liked more than The Office. The Office being Junior and the Brats, as I like to say. So Cesaro's gone. What do you think of that? If you have any comments or queries, you can leave them. In other wrestling news, somewhat related, our buddy there, John Cena, did something just typical celebrity, typical wrestler, makes the whole world about him, sees the world through self indulgent eyes. But Cena basically put out a tweet saying something to the effect of, I wish I could be a real life peacemaker at times like this, or something like that. And he hashtagged his show Peacemaker, which I don't watch. So a lot of fans, a lot of people have been asking me, Mike, what do you think of this Peacemaker show? I'm not watching it, so I don't have an opinion on his show. But um, it's just it's not that his sentiment. I don't think it's quite a big a deal as other people, except that Cena has a history of bad tweets, and with his China thing a while ago, his apology to China, speaking Chinese last summer of 2021, if you remember that story. So now Cena's just wishing he really was the superhero, so he could end this madness over in Europe and Russia with their advances, so to speak. So it's just funny to me because I don't think Cena was speaking or tweeting from a bad place, if it was even him tweeting that, if it wasn't an assistant of some kind. But to me, it's just an example of the self-indulgence of these type of people. They think the whole world revolves around them and whatever project they're up to. By the way, have you purchased my new book, A Distance from Avalon, or Fight or Play Basketball? I hope you have. So what else? Then the MJF promo last night. MJF had a nice promo, which people are discussing and people are thinking about. What's up, my buddy Ian Patrick Gagnon, checking in. Good to see you here, pal. I'm just discussing these wonderful things, and I was just about to get into um, MJF promos last night, MJF's promo last night on AEW Dynamite. A lot of feedback on this. People are saying it's one of the best promos in years. Uh, okay, fair enough, buddy. I understand. We'll watch Dynamite and come back later. But basically, MJF did a promo last night uh, explaining why he was such a fan of CM Punk and what it meant to be a CM Punk fan in his childhood, and joining the football team and the rest of the players giving him a hard time because he's of Jewish descent and mocking him, and really going to some places in a pro wrestling promo we haven't been to in a long time or ever. The heel trying to get sympathy or try to make a connection to the baby face. And, granted, where we're going to see this head is some type of psychological manipulation on MJF's part to CM Punk. I'm assured they're not going to team up and be tag team partners after this promo. It was an interesting Dynamite. There are a few storylines that are feeling a bit repetitive, and I'll get into this more on my AEW Apologist number 23 video this weekend. on the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel. But for now, I want to say, um, well, it's a good question. Let me get into that in a second. I'll get back to that, Juan. What I want to say about this storyline in particular, or last night's Dynamite, the Chris Jericho, Eddie Kingston, and the Bryan Danielson, John Ambrose, or Dean Ambrose, or John Moxley. I just butchered all his names, but basically the Moxley Danielson feud feels very similar in some ways to the Jericho Kingston feud. It's this, you prove it to me and then we'll team up, or you've never reached your potential. And also the Jericho feud seems very similar to the Eddie Kingston CM Punk feud. I'm trying to figure out exactly what the differences are. But if you basically look back at last summer or whenever it is, CM Punk and Eddie Kingston had pretty much the same storyline that Jericho has here with Eddie Kingston. So it's the, I'm the overachiever, you're the underachiever, you were lazy, I wasn't, blah, blah, blah. I accomplished all this stuff, you didn't, and why didn't you, and blah, blah, blah. And I was saying last summer that they should have had Eddie Kingston beat CM Punk on that pay-per-view. I don't think it would have hurt Punk. I think they could have done that and still had Punk lose to MJF. And that would be still good for MJF. So I think they've kind of missed the mark on Eddie Kingston. Yes, he's not the most athletic guy, but the fans like him. So why do people still think that Cody debacle's at work still? Good question, Juan. Maybe they want it to be a work. Maybe maybe they haven't lived through some of the stuff that we've lived through. As far as if you're around for this, Juan, Ric Flair coming over to the WWF in 1991, Hulk Hogan leaving WCW and leaving WWF in 93, eventually in 94, showing up in WCW where he was for 7 or 8 years. People change companies. And I just think it's one of these things where some of these wrestling fans, maybe they're just young and they don't remember, or they want to get excited about something. I mean, to me, it's interesting. It's very interesting that Cody's leaving. Hey, Lawrence is here. Good to see you, buddy. Laza Johnson with his nice pro wrestling group. Top of the morning to you, or top of the afternoon. So why do people think it's a work, Juan? I think it's because they want to think it's a work. Maybe they're legitimately surprised that Cody's left AEW, and they're not sure how it's going to happen. But I think it'll be fine. I mean, I really do. I think Cody will probably be main event level for a while over in the E, and then he'll kind of falter, and he'll probably do some. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. Let's put it that way. I don't know why they think it's a work. I don't think it's a work, but it could be a work. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's a work at the end, but I'm not. I guess I'm predicting Cody is actually going to WWE, but I'm not going to worry about it. I thought that was interesting in Eddie Kingston's promo last night when he was kind of listing off some of the other guys in the Jericho thing, the Jericho promo, when he was right in his face. I thought he could have slipped in, and you're not the guy that left. Like, I think he was listing off like Omega and Moxley, and I think Kingston could have put a little side jab into Cody if he wanted to, but he didn't. I think AEW is trying to handle this thing with grace. Obviously, let's say it is a shoot and Cody is actually leaving. They don't want to dwell on it. As I think Brian Alvarez was saying, Cody and his guys, the guys he was training, the guys that he feuded with, the guys that he tag teamed with, they were kind of like in the Cody verse, as Omega called it, like their own little subsect, their own little division within the company. And so he didn't really interact with the Young Bucks or Omega or some of these other guys, meaning Cody. And so what I think is really a good question is who gets custody of Arn? Well, where's Arn Anderson going to go in all this? Speaking of Arn, he does that podcast, which I do listen to, the Conrad podcast, the Arn podcast. And then basically for the members of the ad-free shows, you had this interesting insiders edition with Conrad speaking with a guy. I think his name is Mike Miller, or maybe I've got that name wrong, but Mike something or other, or Miller, and a guy who kind of worked in the back office in public relations for both WWF in the late 80s and WCW in the early 90s. Thought it was just an interesting interview. Guy was a little bit in over his head at times. Like he said that he was there for the February 5th, 1988 Hebner switch, the Dave and Earl Hebner, and he had hung out with who he thought was Earl Hebner the night before, but it was actually Dave. And he didn't realize that the Hebners were twin brothers. He didn't realize there was a twin, so he was like legitimately shocked as the angle was happening. And he worked for the company. I thought that was funny. I mean, I was a young wrestling fan at the time, and I knew that there was two Hebners because there was a picture of them in Inside Wrestling together. So it just goes to show that some of these idiots in Titan Tower just don't know their own business. Gave this live chat a share on Lazo's Pro Wrestling Fan Group in my Facebook wall. I appreciate that. Lazo's a good guy, a nice actor over there in Australia. He's done some nice movies. Showed me a nice video of him, anti-racism movie that I enjoyed. Let's see what else. So, some interesting things going on. Some people, I mean, just when I say some people, someone on Twitter tweeted that they've got to put Cesaro automatically into the AEW ladder match. Okay, you could. I mean, he definitely worked well in there. You've got Powerhouse Hobbs, you got Keith Lee, you got some big guys in that thing, Wardlow. So yeah, it would be interesting to put Cesaro in there. I think here's the thing, folks, and they've already kind of done this with Jericho and Moxley, but every time a WWE guy is available, I don't think AEW can just stop the presses, stop what they're doing, and revolve the whole company around whatever person just loses their job over WWE. You know what I mean? Like you gotta kind of favor nation some of your own guys, which they've done now with Adam Page and of course once they're with that company, once they're with AEW, they are an AEW guy to because that's who they work for now. But I do think you've got to give some love and some respect to the people that have been with you for the beginning. In my opinion. So it's a it is what it is. It's we all want to be the booker. We all want the pencil. So that's about it, guys. If there's any more, final thoughts, queries, questions, feel free to throw them in. Otherwise, I just thought I'd do a special midweek report. I just thought, it was a good episode of Dynamite last night. A lot of things were being held for the pay-per-view as far as matches, but the fans there in the arena in Connecticut seem to be enjoying themselves. Would be cool to see Cesaro and AEW could face old foes, Bryan Danielson and CM Punk from old school ROH. And I like the fact that you said old school ROH, Lawrence, because you could have just as easily said WWE. But the reality is, a lot of these guys, like you just said, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, add Samoa Joe to that, Seth Rollins, Tyler Black, Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, Generico, Sami Zayn. They all came through other places, and namely Ring of Honor. And then you got AJ Styles, who also did Ring of Honor in the beginning, but eventually he became more of a TNA Impact guy. But I mean, WWE always wants you to think that they created all these people. But if you really look at it through their farm system or whatever you want to call it, how many people have they really, raised from tit to titles, as I say? I could probably say, you could say maybe Sasha Banks and Roman Reigns, and that's about it. Well, folks, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, Lawrence, for sharing the videos, and Juan for checking in, and Ian Patrick. Everyone have a nice day, and so on and so forth. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. And also, like I said, Disregard the Vampire and Fight or Play Basketball. Books are now available.